Greetings, everyone, for this grossly belated Meet the Monsters. And as promised, it's not Monster Rancher 2. No, this time, we'll be doing our singular foray into Monster Rancher 4, whereupon we'll be highlighting the raising experience of the Madillo, Ripper, and Ogyo. These choices are not random. Madillo was exclusive to 4, Ripper's only other appearance is in Evo, and you should know my thoughts on that dumpster fire by now, and Ogyo's only other appearance is in Monster Rancher DS, and the fewer times I'm forced to play that one, the better. Thus, our stars of the show are selected. For this, I chose the Madillo Rhino Roller hybrid, because I think he looks cool, and I named him for Steel Massimo from Mega Man X Command Mission, what with his strong armor. Next, I picked Ripper/Tiger, because he just looks super sleek. I struggled with a name for this guy, so I pinged the Monster Rancher Discord for a moniker. Special thanks to Maple Knight, who dubbed this cool blue monster Blizzara. Then lastly, I picked the Ogyo/Plant, and with aid of my Tomo bro Jitaku, we named her Pogo for the Caveman chapter of Live Alive. So, I know this preamble is getting long-winded, but I need to explain some mechanical considerations and how we're actually going to do this, as this is the first Meet the Monster that will have some your mileage may vary moments. While Monster Ranchers 1 and 2 have pretty set math at play, and my results thus far are all pretty easily replicated, Monster Rancher 4 has two sets of conditionals that are unique to it: training gadgets and the story campaign. Yes, I know Evo has training gadgets, but Evo is not a true Monster Rancher game, so shush. So I had to decide right away how I was going to address these conditionals. If I start a fresh save file, I'd have no gadgets and limited room for monsters, but a story to complete. The alternative was access to all gadgets, courtesy of a cheat code, but a less clearly defined finish line. So I decided that all gadgets and max ranch space are a must to conduct this run. So I booted up my old save file from the Let's Play here on the channel and determined the game basically ends at the S rank. Not the S official. That exists purely as a formality, and you don't actually get anything for completing it. You don't even need to complete the story campaign. So the win condition this time would logically be a win at the A official tournament, getting the monster to the S rank. The deadline would simply be to do so before they stop gaining any stats during their training, latter-day Monster Rancher's version of monster death, so to speak. So the scene was set, and to make sure that this video does not last the next 100 hours of our lives, I'm going to greatly, massively cut down on what you need to see to understand this process. Why? Because to progress in Monster Rancher 4's ranks, you need to beat 3 regular tournaments to get star points. Once you have those 3, you can enter the official. And I'm going to be raising 3 monsters simultaneously. And a singular expedition, if you grind for a bit for those adventure level ups, can last you hours. So I am greatly trimming things down this time. I will, instead, explain their general handling, life events as they happen, and then only bother to show footage from their official tournaments as they happen. Otherwise, we have 3 times as many monsters and 4 times as many tournaments to cover, and I'm just not willing to do that. Cool? Cool. We have a lot to get through. Monster Rancher 4 is the Zen garden of Monster Rancher. The general pacing is slower, the load screen crops up fairly regularly, so you might understand why I wanted to get through this sometime this century. And taking these 3 home, I already have a pretty good idea of what to do. All 3 of these breeds show up in expeditions and tournaments, so I have at least a passing idea of what their specializations are. Madillos are tanks, akin to golems and the like, so I put Massimo on the pendulum gadget and the moving target gadget. Thus, this should build up a decent amount of power, defense, and accuracy. The starting techs are power ones, so I feel pretty confident in this assessment. Now, where my confidence gets shaken a bit is looking at the other 2. I think they're wizard builds, intelligence, speed, and skill monsters. However, Blizzara starts with only intelligence techs, and Pogo starts with only power techs. Mixed attackers are just having a bad starting hand. I decided this is a trial run, and if I botch it, it wouldn't have been the first time, so I like to have Blizzara and Pogo trade off across the Thunder Machine, Phonograph, and Running Machine gadgets for a net gain across life, skill, intelligence, and speed. This will be true for the better part of their entire life. I have lots of food items and oily oil for fatigue management, but the gadgets they're on are demanding, so the best thing to do is to alternate training and resting. Yes, half their lives will be spent asleep, but I can't help it. There's no such thing as a never-tired method in Monster Rancher 4, near as I can tell. So I trained for a while. I'll be honest, I'm out of practice in Monster Rancher 4, and I don't recall 100% the difficulty curve of the game after my time away. So at the 5 months mark, I like to venture to Toggle Cave to see how training has treated us. And yeah, I probably overprepared in the early hours of this run. We were crushing stray monsters underfoot. All 3 got to adventure level 9, excepting Blizzara, who managed to get just to 10. How did I do this? Well, I ran in circles outside the final room of the dungeon and ran that energy meter all the way to under 100 remaining. Waste not, want not. Massimo got 5 new techs, 4 of which were power moves, and nearly filled the entire slot reel of attacks that he had with useful moves. Of note is Rabbit Punch, a very oddly named attack that moves him from the mid-range to the close band after using it, making it a great combo with his basic backhand smack attack to finish weak enemies off. He also got Dirt Search and Hard Skin, and some other traits to buff his attacks, but then also got 4C, which is the inverse of Hard Skin. How does the game do the math here? Do these cancel each other out? I suspect this is because of his Rhino Roller heritage. I make note that I will need to rectify that soon. Blizzara got 6 new techs, but decidedly mixed results. Some power, some intelligence. One of these intelligence moves is a self-buff, which is one of the most fundamentally useless things to get in a Monster Rancher game. But it does give him a full set of intelligence moves, which is enough at least for now. Past me said, not aware of what was to come later on down the line. For traits, he got a few elemental lures and a few combat traits and high counter. Wonderful. A power-up to a mechanic I don't use because the game can legit cheat at it. No thanks. Pogo also got a handful of new techs, but the intelligence-based ones, they're all relegated to mid and far distances. No coverage in the front. I don't love that, but for now I can work with it. She also gets high in water searches, which will help during explorations, and some general combat traits as well. Nothing too offensive this go-around. The upside to all of this is that it gives me a better understanding of how each of them is going to fight going forward. Massimo is an all-out attacker who can move back further to attack tanks with heavier hitting moves, or closer for speedier enemies. Put a pin in that, we'll be revisiting it soon enough. His growth started off sluggish, but he got into a groove not long after his training got underway. Blizzara's Ice Pillar hurls enemies into the far range band, and his relatively high accuracy Mute Cutter to finish off weakened enemies as a result. He also started his training quite poorly, but a few scolds later, he eventually became our standout star, and one I plan to pin a lot of our hopes on. Pogo really, really loves guts drain techniques. Like, a lot. More than damage, her newfound intelligence moves can drain 40 plus guts on a successful hit, and it was just a coincidence that I gave her a plant subtype, to be honest. She's consistently good, but I struggle to figure out Ogyo's precise niche. A lot of her techs are power-based, but none seem keyed to do a whole bunch of damage. Well, I am supposed to be learning as I go, of course. Let's talk about their time in E rank in brief. Massimo struggles with skill/accuracy, something fierce, but he can weather several hits pretty well this early on. If he can net one solid hit, he'll usually win just fine. In the official, the Tiger, Sharp, refused to fight any of my 3 monsters, immediately forfeiting when prompted. Which is pretty hilarious, not gonna lie. And since rosters for officials don't appear to be randomized in 4, I can just skip talking about him completely. Now, I'd love to tell you that I use some kind of outstanding strategy or some such to win these matches, but for Massimo, no, not really. If I felt I could, I'd use Rabbit Punch and would immediately follow up Back Blow to just 1-2 my enemies to death. If I felt less confident that would work, I would instead get close and spam Back Blow until I just won. No one in E-Rank challenges Massimo meaningfully. Pogo was a little less elegant as none of her moves would involve field control elements, so I took a bit of when all you have is the mid-range attack mentality to many of her fights. Thankfully, this is just the E-Rank, so that totally worked. By the time Blizzara got to the tournament, it was more of a slaughter than a tournament. Nothing could keep pace with him, and he just tore enemies apart. I guess that's why his species name is Ripper, huh? Thus you move on to the D-Rank. And now do you see why I'm abridging this so heavily now? The D-Ranks weren't exactly the same experience as E, but they were similar in many ways. Massimo struggled both with accuracy and the ever-present bullish condition, but if you threw enough punches, he'd eventually connect with something and prevented any major mistakes from happening. As a fun aside, Massimo was also the cheapest monster to feed, as his favorite food his entire life was potatoes. His second favorite was either mangoes or bananas, depending on mood. Blizzara has a richer palate, preferring beef, pork, or any kind of meat, which, I mean, respect, I get it. However, Japan wrongly believes that eating meat makes you fat, so I had to keep him on a diet of rotating food items to keep him lean and ninja-like for stat purposes. And in combat, well, my notes for Blizzara's performance in the D rank literally read as follows. Lol, GG, too easy, Lamau. So yeah, he was a terror, a living whirlwind of blades, ice, and attitude. If the ice column into Mute Cutter's combo wasn't enough, his freeze attack had huge single-hitting damage. Pogo had a very easy and consistent diet. Her favorite food was the vitamin capsules you can buy in Vizsla. She also ran into an interesting mechanic of Monster Rancher 4. There aren't many tournaments on the calendar, and there's very, very few of the much-vaunted tag and group battles as well, especially prior to the B rank, meaning that she was still powering up while Blizzara and Massimo had comfortably graduated. She had to wait several in-game months to get to an official tournament as the third in line. So by the time she rolled up, her stats were so massively huge, she just swatted every enemy aside with no real resistance. You might have noticed that at around this point, as I'm halfway down page 3 of this script, I might have realized the cracks in my sanity taking hold, and I may just be showing the official tournament footage instead of going into any real depth anymore. This video may have been a mistake. Please make this suffering worth my while, and do that like, comment, subscribe thing. Please, and thank you. Okay, I'm back now. Let's save further existential crises for the end, shall we? Alright, back on track. The only threat Blizzara met in the official C was Mocha the Mochi, who landed some decent hits, but it was far from enough. Because of how MR4 faces you to pace tournaments, it was basically the week after that Massimo got to enter into the official D. My general strategy is just to have him throw as many punches as possible. Eventually something hits, and he hits like a Mack truck when he does. So, at this point, with Blizzara a B-rank monster, Massimo in C, and Pogo in D awaiting her breakout opportunity, I head to the Kaloragi jungle. They are 1 year and 4 months old at this point. In terms of risk-reward ratios, Kaloragi is the safest bet to level up adventure levels with some expediency prior to monsters becoming higher-tier contenders. You get better treasure tables at Permias and Korea, but you have to contend with more Jack in the Show and harder enemies, and since this is Monster Rancher, you better believe getting Luxact in just one bad fight is enough to make or break an entire expedition. Thankfully, this was a productive use of our time, getting to adventure level 13 across the board, and nearly, but not completely, filling out our attack rosters. While Massimo met expectations with almost exclusively power moves, I think he got one intelligence-based tech in this run. The others surprised me. Blizzara is decidedly a mixed attacker family, akin to Tigers, getting nearly a 1-to-1 ratio between power and intelligence moves. However, he had just enough for a single row of intelligence moves, as I said before, so the build's not unviable. It may not be preferred in practice. Pogo, meanwhile, only has intelligence moves in the back 2 columns still, none at near range. And you know what she loves more than anything else? Yep, I was right. It's gut sapping. I also got to remove some of their useless or counterintuitive traits here with ones more fitting of their playstyles. My early impressions were more or less spot on, with some minor updates as time wore on. I was planning on doing a third expedition at some point, but I never did get around to it. They had most of their attacks already, so I didn't see a need going forward. Focusing on improving and fighting was much more pressing, courtesy of the limited number of available tournaments on the calendar. Upon return, Massimo went to the official C as well, following in the largely untroubled footsteps of Blizzara. In fact, he also battled a Madillo Rhino Roller hybrid as well, but our time of over-preparation meant ours was simply better in every way that mattered. The final contender, Bundy the Garu, was undefeated, so I expected a big brawl, but no, he was easy. He just stood there and sandbagged until Massimo knocked him out. I guess I really did over-prepare. Anyway, as soon as I could get her into one, Pogo entered the official C. The upside to official tournaments is that they're staggered scheduling-wise, so you can have multiple official cups over the course of a couple weeks, rather than them all being stacked on the same week. The downside is you wait 2 in-game months between this rotation. So Pogo was so deep into her training, the stat chart alone should have discouraged any and all comers at this point, and it kinda did. After the first bout with Norris the Suezo, the next 2 contenders immediately threw their hands up in defeat, allowing us to skip the latter half of the tournament instantly. Pogo, queen of the arena, smoked all and any comers without suffering a singular hit for her trouble. And at 1 year, 10 months, Massimo and Blizzara got their very mature notices, followed a little after at the 2-year mark when Pogo got hers as well. That means the time crunch begins. While the others prepped to play catch-up, Blizzara powered into the B official solo. Actually, around this time, tag and group matches began to become more of a thing, and this permitted Massimo and Pogo to help one another in gathering much-needed star points to expedite their promotions as well. This is actually something I wish MR4 did a whole lot more with. Having your monsters become fringe is such a great idea, but they did so little with it. Anyway, yeah, Blizzara's momentum has been unreal. Getting a net gain to 4 stats and having strong intelligence text to back it up, he was completely uncontested in his reign. Massimo swept in just behind that and did much the same. The only difference is Massimo whiffed a whole lot more than his siblings do. So much so that a particular plant enemy in the official B almost threatened him, but a more patient wait and charge up approach was taken to win that match. Thankfully, not too bad. Back at home, I also noticed a thing. Massimo would rarely crest higher than 55% on the moving target gadget, to the point where it oftentimes felt like I was wasting weeks even having him use it. So I swapped that gadget off the ranch entirely in favor of another copy of the running machine. The gains to life would supplement his defenses, and it just raised accuracy more than moving target did. The fact that it leeches a tiny bit of power is irrelevant, given that at this point on their best machines, each of them was gaining plus 30 in 2 stats apiece, more or less. Anyway, time for Pogo to follow her big brothers, and really just show how those who are last may yet be first, or at least first-placing champions. This little fish brought big Impress energy onto the field and just dominated, rolled up, and tossed aside everything in her path. I thought we were pretty much secure for an easy win. Getting to the S rank seemed trivial at this point. That is, until we met Null. Null is the ultimate gatekeeper for those looking for the prosperity that is S rank. It's an ugly Mogi-Mochi hybrid with a frankly absurdly imbalanced stat spread. I've never seen Null lose a CPU versus CPU match to the point where I wondered if some of the cheat codes I used in this playthrough might have tripped some kind of anti-cheat functionality, but that would require Tecmo to be good at game design. Cough, cough, Monster Rancher DS, cough. So I doubt that, to be honest. While Null lacks defense, it has absurdly high speed and accuracy, and it's pretty decent in every other stat. I couldn't hit him. At best, I had a 25% chance, which is essentially 0 in practice. We lost. It doesn't matter that we swept the rest. Null won undefeated, and thus Blizzara was sent home first loser. This was not a numbers game. This was a problem that I'd need to overcome with a strategy of some type. And time was against me. Massimo and Blizzara got their old age warning at 2 years, 10 months, and Pogo got hers 4 months later. Time was of the essence now. So, how do I deal with an enemy I have no hopes at hitting? Simple. I would have to play mind games and attack enough to provoke the AI to counterattack and luck out and have it actually not work. I basically needed Null to defeat himself. So I came back a while later and attacked quickly and with predictable button presses. I simply needed to get lucky, so I spammed circle button. On the third press, Null took the bait and missed. That was precisely what we were needing and instantly knocked it out as the only threat to our victory. And then a very annoying thought crossed my mind, because I was going to need to do this 2 more times. Massimo then prepared to tackle it, but honestly, he had the easiest time of it. Whiffs counted way less when they were expected to happen, and when Null did attack, he easily shrugged them off. Even when Null got the Nirvana passive, which ups dodge rate after dodging successfully multiple times, he was easily able to just wait. Null was undone by his own haste and spamming counters. The rest fell just because the powerhouse punched them once, maybe twice, and plowed through them. It wasn't until Pogo reached official A that I changed my thought process a little bit. Pogo didn't have to knock her enemies out. I just needed to get one good hit in. She was too fast to get hit herself, and an interesting reversal of fortunes. So once I landed the much-needed counter hit, the first was based on her paltry power tech and thus didn't really count, I just waited Null out and won. I then proceeded to do much the same the remainder of the tournament, simply keeping guts as high as possible, striking only as needed, essentially revisiting my tactics from Meet the Kato. And in no time, we swept, and yeah, that was it. We won. As I said at the beginning, there is the S official, but that doesn't actually unlock anything, not even the game acknowledging that you've done it. You actually achieve Master Rank by defeating the story's non-repeatable final boss fight. And yeah, there's the expeditions and their plus variants, but MR4's endgame is shockingly barren, when divorced from the storyline that serves as the game's backbone. None of that serves as any kind of goalpost I can use, not in a meaningful non-filler sense. And since this has gone on way longer than any other one of these videos have before or will again, I feel that's sufficient. So let's recap. What did I think of these monsters? Honestly, I loved having all 3 of them. Madillos are just cool, and while his niche was predictable and safe, it was fun and engaging. Rippers are just super sleek and having that highly honed predator vibe to them. They definitely live up to their species name. Ogyos are beautiful and very cool. I'm glad they had some impact on things after 4, even if it was largely limited in scope. All 3 of these monsters are wonderful, and I feel should be considered for any future installments that Tecmo might accidentally get around to making sometime prior to the heat death of the universe. No, Line Monster Farm does not count. and I loved getting to know all of them, and I'm happy that they all made it to the end game, too. And that checks Monster Rancher 4 off the list. Every other breed appears elsewhere in the series, so that closes the book on this stretch. Join us next time as we visit other monster breeds as well, and I'll see you there.